Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Queen Auset-Heru, and thank you for joining me for another edition of The Witch Trials. So today, we are going to do something very different than usual. Alright, so you guys already know how the witch trials go. I'm going to put a movie on trial. I am the witch and I'm putting it on trial. And I'm going to tell you if it has accuracy, if there's any real witchcraft in this movie. So today I decided to do something different because I almost always do movies that have female witches. I've only talked about a couple male witches. So today I did a movie that's based totally on a male witch. He is the main character, and every witch, he's the only witch, and he's the only guy. There's a couple other guys in it, but they're not witches. So today I wanted to tell you guys about this movie. The movie is called Warlock. Warlock came out in 1989. I missed this one, and it has 2 sequels that I might review later. So today we're going to put this movie on trial. And the first thing I'm going to tell you is about the title. The term witch does not refer to a woman. The term witch can be used by a man or a woman. The term wizard and the term warlock are sometimes heard, especially in fiction. But generally, male witches do not use that. A wizard I have heard used by some of my European male witch friends. But I've never heard anyone use warlock. I've heard several people from Europe tell me that warlock was an oath breaker. So it was a witch, but they betrayed their covenant or something like that. And it was a male, but he was a betrayer. So I don't know if that's historically accurate, but that's, the word on the street basically is that's why they don't use the term warlock and they prefer the term witch. So if you know any men who were into paganism, you can ask them, but that's what I was told when I did my research. So this movie Warlock is already using a term that isn't really used. And to be honest with you, I don't like this movie. This movie is awful. And Hollywood has this tendency to want to make money. That's all it's really about. They want to make money. They don't care about accuracy, witchcraft accuracy. They don't even care if the movie's that great. As long as it makes money, that's all they care about. And this movie is obvious, and it didn't date very well. Because remember, it was made in 1989, so the special effects are awful. I don't even think they were that good for 1989, but they're not that great. So I didn't really like the movie that much, but I'm glad that I did it because it gave me a lot of stuff to talk about. Excuse me for a second. Let me grab a drink. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to tell you the summary of the movie. Then I'm going to tell you the 13 vices and the 10 virtues that this movie got. The summary goes as follows. There is a warlock. This man is evil. When I start to tell you some of the stuff that he did, it's clear that this is a fantasy. He is an evil individual. So anyway, the story starts in 1691. They've caught this warlock, and their plans are to execute him. They have him up in a bell tower somewhere. He's tied up. They're beating him up, that kind of thing. They tortured their captives back then, and some people say they still do. But they're torturing him, and the priest, or not the priest, the town elders come in to tell him his sentence and see if he wants to confess. Of course he doesn't. The executioner comes in after them, beats him up a little bit more, and then he leaves. Well, when the executioner leaves, all of a sudden there's this huge storm. The storm comes out of nowhere, clouds and winds and just rain. And when the executioner turns around to see what happened to the warlock is gone. I mean, vanished. And the executioner is just standing there. Everybody else is like, oh my God, what happened to him? And the next thing you know, he's in 1989, what looked like to me Los Angeles. I could be wrong about the location, but he's definitely 1989. And he was just in 1691. So he's he's half dressed, and he is in the middle of these people's floor. So this lady and her roommate come out of their bedrooms, and in the middle of the floor is this, half conscious man who just came through their window. Now, I understand, because even the man says in the movie, he's like, well, what about a little compassion? I understand compassion. I believe in compassion. What I don't believe in is a perfect stranger busting through your window at 2 o'clock in the morning and you letting him spend the night. I would have kicked his behind out of my place, but the phone wasn't working. Apparently the winds had knocked down the phone line, so they couldn't call the police, couldn't call the ambulance, and they felt obligated to let him stay, which turns out to be the worst mistake they ever could make. So they let him stay in her bedroom. The next day, she gets up and goes to work, and you see her take some insulin. She's a diabetic. So she takes her insulin and she goes to work. Then homeboy that owns the place gets up and starts making breakfast. You know how you do. You have a strange man that you don't know sleeping in your roommate's bed, and you get up and start making him some eggs. Of course you do. So he's cooking the food, and the warlock walks into the room. And the warlock, has this little weird accent or whatever the case is, which whatever. So he walks into the room, the guy is cooking, and he's like, where did you get that? And he's talking about his ring. So through the exposition, you learn that they are in Boston. That's what it was, Boston. I said LA. You find out they're in Boston, and you find out that in 1691, he was in Boston. So basically, he's been teleported in time, but in the same state. And some kind of way, his belongings are in this person's house that he is now in. Apparently, maybe that was his house before he got captured and was about to be executed. So the man is standing there telling him about, he's just chattering away, and, you're hungry? I'll drop you off downtown, and blah, 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 blah. And the warlock takes a knife and chops off his finger. I mean, this is like in the first 5-10 minutes, he done chopped the man's finger off, because the ring he had on his finger was his ring. And the guy said to him, I can't get this ring off. I broke my finger and it doesn't come off anymore. And as soon as he said that, he picked up a knife and chopped his finger off, pulled the ring off, put the ring on his hand, and then grabbed the guy and put his tongue in his mouth. And you think he's French kissing him. So I'm like, okay, we got some homoeroticism going on here. But he's biting out his tongue. He spits his tongue on the frying pan the guy was just frying stuff on, and drops him on the floor. No reason. Killed the man for no reason. And then he leaves. He leaves with the ring, and he leaves. So the police go tell the girl that her roommate is dead and try to get more information about who this man was that, just killed this man and bit his tongue out his head. And of course she doesn't know, because he was some stranger. And to make a long story short, the gentleman, the executioner from 1691, has followed him to 1989. And now he is trying to find the warlock and bring him to justice. So the girl who was there, her roommate now dead, goes back to the house. Why would you go back there? I'll never know. She goes back there, and the new guy is there. He attacks her. They tussle and fight, and he gets arrested because now the phone's working. So he gets arrested. Then the cop tells her, you should not stay here. It's not safe here. She says, okay, goes back inside because she's supposed to be packing. And the other guy, the warlock, the evil guy, comes back. So now he puts a spell on her. It's just like, oh my God. So basically, what ends up happening in the end is the warlock goes to a woman who does channeling of spirits, and he channels the devil for her, gives him his assignment. The devil wants the warlock in 1989 to find his sacred grimoire. This is a book of spells and incantations, but it's the devil's book. So it's the most evil book ever and coveted by witches. And he's supposed to find this book and bring it back to the devil. Which, if you really think about it, the devil really wouldn't need him to go find a book for him if he really wanted it that bad. If the devil is the devil that, the Christian devil that we all grew up hearing about, he really wouldn't need somebody to retrieve a book for him. But, okay. So, the warlock is off to retrieve this book so he can be the head guy. He can be rewarded by Satan. He goes off to find this book. The executioner from 1691 is chasing him, and now he got the young girl helping him. So, to make a long story short, because this was an hour and 43 minutes of this, they chase him around. They lose him. They find him. They lose him. They find him. He put a spell on her. They find the bracelet. It was like this whole quest they go on. And at the end, they kill the warlock. Because remember I said that she had diabetes. So she was injecting herself with insulin. So at the graveyard that they were at during the final battle, she gets some salt water because they're right by the ocean. Some kind of way this graveyard is by the ocean. I've never seen a graveyard by an ocean, but I guess it could happen. And he throws her and she ends up in the water. So she takes out her syringe and puts salt water into it. And according to the movie, witches are afraid of salt water because it destroys us or something. And she injects him with the salt water. He explodes and catches on fire, and the movie is over. So there it is. And the protagonist, the guy that she was helping, he goes back to the past. He whisks away, and some message is left for her on his grave. I will never forget you, love always, something like that. Because of course she had fallen in love with him, during the course of this quest. And he kissed her on the eyes, but not the mouth, and all this kind of crazy stuff. And then he disappears. So that's the end of the movie. Now I'm going to tell you the vices. This is the good part. This movie was awful. Did I mention that? There's so many vices in this movie. There's 13 vices. I love the number 13. It's the day I was born, February 13th. But there are 13 vices in this movie. And these are very serious infractions. So let me tell you about these. These are things that could never happen. Things that witches, wizards, whatever you want to call us, magic workers cannot do. The first one is time travel. Witches, warlocks, nobody can time travel unless we figure it out in the future, or we figured it out and are keeping it hidden, because that way I wouldn't know about it. But we cannot time travel. I wish we could time travel, because I would love to talk to my grandma. I would love to talk to Malcolm X. There's so many figures from history, Joan of Arc. There's so many figures from history I would love to sit down and just talk to. But time travel is not possible. This man time traveled about 300 years, and it's just not possible. Number 2, extreme telekinesis. Why is it that in so many of these witch movies, they have extreme telekinesis? They can throw humans like blocks. I've seen them throw cars. I've seen them do all kind of stuff in these movies that we cannot do. Your telekinesis is not 9 times out of 10 going to be that extreme. Okay? The times that I've read studies on telekinesis, the person moves something a couple inches, a couple feet, and it was never anything that's heavy. 95-pound person? Nah. Maybe a piece of paper or a plastic ball or something, but he threw her, he opened doors, he could do all kind of stuff with his telekinesis. If I could do that, I wouldn't even move. I would just sit here and be like throwing stuff and grabbing stuff and pushing stuff. I wouldn't even move from this spot. Number 3, mutilations. For some reason, this warlock had a thing for mutilating people. And I've never met a witch or a wizard or anybody who had a thing for mutilating people. He was gross. He chopped that man's finger off for no reason. Like, this man was the kindest man in the world. And he just chopped his finger off and bit his tongue out and killed him for no reason. So he had a thing for mutilations. He seemed to get off on it. I thought it was kind of creepy. Number 4, he called himself the son of Satan. Now, I don't know if Satanists use this term. I've never heard enough about, I don't know anything about them. So I don't know if they use this term or not. But I know none of the pagan groups that I'm affiliated with, or I know or have been around, Wicca or any of the ones I've come across, will call themselves the son of Satan. As a matter of fact, the people I know that are pagans, especially the pagans from Europe and the pagans from Africa, they don't believe in the devil. There is no Satan. There's evil magic, there's evil spirits, there's negative energy, but nobody has a devil except for Christians. The Christians created and maintained their own devil. That's their devil. That's not ours. So him calling himself the son of Satan, I thought was kind of weird because it's not a term that most pagans use. Then he did an aging spell. He did a spell where the young lady that was helping the protagonist chase him down, she would age 20 years every day. We cannot do aging spells. We can't age something forward or backwards. Now, I do admit that we can do different potions and things like that that could slow down aging. Like, for instance, I use one on my face every day to keep my skin young and tight. And that is something that I've made with my herbs and my witchy stuff. And it will keep my skin looking good, probably longer. But I'm still going to get old. Trust me. I feel it, you know. I'm still aging. So it's not like we've cheated aging or accelerated aging, you know. You can slow it down a bit, and that's usually about it. Witches can't step up. They had said in the movie that witches cannot step on sacred ground, church ground, hollow ground, graveyard ground. And that is absolutely not true. A witch could always do those things, because I'm going to tell you how I know this for a fact. Witches, especially ancient witches, I would say all the way back to, I've seen literature as far back as like the 900s, have used different things. And one of those things that is commonly used in a lot of spells is graveyard dirt. So if the witch can't go to the graveyard, why do so many witches go get graveyard dirt? Graveyard dirt, graveyard nails. A lot of witches go and leave offerings to their ancestors at the graveyard. Witches have always been in graveyards. So that belief that we can't go on hollow ground is bullshit. And church ground. I was at church a couple years ago. In full priestess garb, I was in church. And somebody died and I went to pay homage. So that belief that witches, you know, can't touch hollow ground, sacred ground, church ground, that's never been true. Witches have been going in churches, because remember, the early European witches, even the ones who, you know, practiced, because we don't have a lot of evidence of ones who really practiced in the open. But the bottom line is that many of them, to keep up appearances, had to go to church. How you not going to go to church? You have to go. You have to keep up appearances, or they're going to think you're what? A witch. You know? So people, they went to church, they went to the graveyard and got stuff. They did all kind of things. So that is, I don't know who made that up. It just doesn't make any sense at all. Next one. Making potions out of children's body parts. So many of these movies put us out there like we hate children. And I'm like, no, 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 no. So many of these movies act like we hate children. We kill them, we eat them, we boil them. I'm like, yo. And the warlock in this movie, he got this poor little kid, killed him. You didn't see him kill him. You just saw him talking to the kid. Thank God, because I would have been really creeped out if I had to watch him kill him. But he was talking to this kid, making nice with him, and the next thing you know, he had killed the kid and had used his body fat to make some kind of potion. And I was just sitting there like, I don't know anybody who would do something like that. And I can't say it wouldn't happen. I can't say nobody's that crazy. But on average, that's awful. Like that's just awful. Flying spell. So out of the little boy's bones, or his fat in his body, he made a potion and drank it that gave him the ability to fly. All he had to do was make the potion. And I was just like, we can't fly. There's no spell to help you fly. You're going to kill yourself trying. Paper was bewitched. He had this piece of paper. Apparently, it was, I told you guys about Satan's book. Well, he found a piece of the book. And apparently, if you tear up the pieces of paper, they magically come back together. And I was like, I ain't never seen nothing like that ever in my life. That would be cool, but nah. Extreme evil eye. He had the extreme evil eye, almost similar to his extreme telekinesis. But if he looked at you and you stared back at him, your eyes would start to bleed. And I was like, I don't know nobody whose evil eye is on point like that, you know? I don't know nobody. I mean, I've seen people give people, you know, I've given people the eye, you know, like I would smack you if I could. And some people do look at people in malice, but not to the point where their eyes started bleeding if they look back at you. Like, oh my God. Creating fire with his hands. He could create fire with his hands. I don't know how he learned that trick, but some kind of way he did a spell and then he could use his hands to make fire. Again, can't do that. He could also cause earthquakes. He caused an earthquake at the priest's house. There was this priest and he went to their house and he caused an earthquake and the door like came off the hinges, you know? And I was like, if I could cause an actual earthquake, I probably wouldn't do that. But I was like, that's crazy. You know, like what? And like the door fell off the hinges? Like, oh my God. And the last one is he exploded from salt water being injected. And I eat salt on my food, so I don't know where this comes from as far as it being something that could kill a witch. Witches use salt actually in our rituals to protect. Salt is thought of as a protectant. Some people use, and I just saw this the other day and I was thinking about it, making one, a salt bowl. And you put it in your home, and the idea is to pray on it and infuse it with oils and crystals and things like that, and it sucks in negative energy. And once a month you dump it. You dump out the salt bowl and fill it with more salt and do the same thing over and over again. And it's the idea is to protect your space. So witches aren't afraid of salt. We use salt. So that, I got where the salt came from, but they just had the idea a little bit twisted, you know? Now let me give you the virtues, okay? These are the things that could actually happen. Number one, he created a storm. It's called weather magic, and you can create a storm, or you can do weather magic, I should say. A lot of witches do weather magic. I've never done weather magic. I think I might have done like a candle to, you know, to pray on a hurricane that was coming or something like that. But these witches, the ones that are really into weather magic, they would do something like that too. But some of them will actually go to the shore, or they will actually go to the woods and they'll like do a ritual to try to manipulate the weather to varying degrees of success. So it is something called weather magic if you want to Google it. They had crystals. He had a big crystal, and the lady was using the crystal to channel. So I thought that was kind of cool because we do use crystals for channeling, meditation, a number of different things. Their crystal ended up exploding, which I've never seen, but they did have a couple good crystals. Metaphysical books. There was metaphysical books all over the place. He even went to see a lady and she had a metaphysical bookstore. So there was like metaphysical books all over the place. Channeling. The lady he went to see her to channel Satan for him, which to me really didn't make any sense, because if he's the son of Satan and he's one of his warriors and Satan has sent him on a mission, how can he not communicate with him? Why would he need to go to an outside source? I would expect that if a deity or a demon or a being, an entity sent you on a mission, they would have a way of contacting you. He had to go ask somebody to channel it. So it was kind of weird, but we do channel. A lot of people channel. I channel, so that's very true. Channeling is when you sit and you basically you tap into another being. Some people tap into the being and like feel and like repeat what they're saying. Some people, like me, feels the being inside of them and let it talk. I've only done it a few times because I was doing it during priestess training. During priestess training, you have to learn a number of different things, and that was one of them. I haven't done it too many times since then, but I know how to do it. Grimoires. A grimoire is basically a spell book. That's it. A spell book. They call it a book of magic, a book of shadows. Everybody has a spell book. It's basically just a book. It could be a copy book. It doesn't have to be anything magical. Mine is kind of cool. It's like a dragon on it and stuff, But basically, it's just a book of magic. And in this movie, they had a book, but it was like this evil book that belonged to Satan. And for most of us, we have a book of magic, and it's just our potions, our spells, how to enchant jewelry, where the moon phases are, the kind of stuff. It's like your personal encyclopedia. And most of us have written it by hand, penned it by hand. And some people type it. Some people have it on their computer in modern times. But yeah, a lot of us have a book that we use. And it's just a collection of the spells that we choose to use. Some people write down every spell they do, the date, the results, like some people really keep really intense records. My records aren't that great, but I do keep the spells that I like. The ones that worked easily, I keep those. The potions that I like, things like that, I do keep those things. He actually cast a spell too. And of course, we do cast spells. He cast a spell to age the young lady. Now, the spell he cast wasn't a real spell, but he did cast the spell. And he just kind of said some words, and many of us do this. We say some rhyming words and might light a candle, or it's different ways to do it. But all he did was say the spell. He didn't do anything else. So he didn't like light a candle. He didn't, throw some herbs. He didn't do anything else. All he did was say the spell. All right, now let's see. Using salt. We do use salt. Like I said earlier, it's just that we do use salt against evil, negative, bad vibrations, that kind of thing. Salt is believed to be a purifier. A lot of people put a circle of salt around their home, or a circle of salt around their bedroom, or the room that they do their rituals in. It's a protection. It's believed that it protects you from negative energies. And a lot of these movies do have salt in them. I've noticed that. They just don't always use it correctly. All right, let's see the next one. The next one says, let me see. It's not too many more, y'all. I think it's three more. Okay. Using personal items to do magic. He stole her bracelet to put the spell on her. And you do have to use something personal from a person to cast a spell. Their hair, one of their items, their full name and date of birth. You need something that's theirs. And most of us, like fingernails, saliva, blood, You can use breast milk. You can use anything really that's theirs, and something of their body is the strongest. So that part is very true. He stole her bracelet to do the spell. There were signs. There were signs of trouble, signs of evil. And there are signs. Many of us know the signs. These signs are ones that are old that I don't know. It says spoiled milk and flame that turns blue. So they were saying that if milk spoils for no reason, or if you light a flame and it turns blue, either a cigarette lighter or a fire, if it turns blue and there's no orange or no yellow in it, then that's the sign that evil is nearby. And there are different signs of different things. That's not what I'm familiar with. Those I'm not familiar with. But for example, if a woman dreams of a fish, she is pregnant, or somebody around her usually is pregnant. That's one sign. There's all kinds of different signs that come in dreams and prophecies and things like that. And the last one, energy reading. He was at the Reverend's house. At one point, they came across this priest, and the priest knew where the other part of the book was. So the good guys found him first. Then the bad guy found him second. And when he found him, he was like, threatening him. And so he made his wife sit in front of him, and he touched her, and he was like, she's pregnant with twins. He was all like mysterious about it. And he's like, she's pregnant with twins, and they will be born healthy if you give me what I want, And so I don't know if the guy knew his wife was pregnant or not, but she knew she was pregnant, and she was looking at him, and she was like, yo, give him whatever he wants. He gonna kill our babies. And of course they did. They gave him the information, and he left. So he was able to do that, know she was pregnant, through energy reading. And many of us can read energy. I've even been able to tell that someone was pregnant before, just from their energy. They walked in a room and I was like, you're pregnant. And she was like, this happened on 2 or 3 different occasions. And the person was like, how did you know that? And it wasn't, they weren't showing. They were like 6 weeks, It wasn't that. It was just, I saw something. And I don't always notice it, but I just saw something when she walked in the room. I was like, you are pregnant. Like it's something about her. It wasn't a glow. I mean, she hadn't changed physically at all, but I just could tell she was pregnant. And that's where that energy reading comes in. Her energy had changed. When a woman is with child, her energy changes. At least that's one time when her energy changes. So we have 13 vices and 10 virtues. This movie gets a D. I'm gonna give it a D because it did have 10 things that we could actually do. The problem is that the 13 things that we couldn't do were pretty much the bulk of the movie. The things we could do were just kind of small things that, like, you saw a crystal, you saw him do a reading for like 30 seconds, oh, she's pregnant, kind of thing. So it was like, everything that we could actually do wasn't the bulk of the movie. The things we could actually do was just the